Well, hey, Angie,
Well, hey, Rebecca.
how's it going?
It's great.
Good.
It is going well. It's Friday.
Isn't it? Yeah,
It's Friday. Friday for us. Don't know when we'll post this, but Friday for us
right.
nonetheless.
Which, the tone probably sounds a little different than if it were like a Tuesday or something where we're like, all right,
Yes.
I'm in the throes of work week war. But
Yes.
no,
Here we are. Here we are.
hey.
Well, welcome to another session. Here we are, episode 12. So
Yeah.
welcome all to Well in the Well podcast. Again, we are always thankful and glad you're joining us in the conversation. Each week, Rebecca and I are excited to bring you real-time, relatable, and practical tips that we're experiencing as working moms and professional thought leaders out in the community with the hopes that it resonates for you. And so today, we're excited to bring you the topic of the power of consistency. And so, Rebecca, I'm curious, what does the power of consistency mean to you?
So I was thinking about this. What's interesting is I've seen a lot of posts and stuff in social media around consistency and discipline and things of that nature recently. Which I don't know if it's summer now. Is it the time of year where, you're 6, 7 months into your New Year's resolution and most people have already dropped off, months ago. And the people who are sticking around are like, this is why I'm sticking around. I'm consistent in what I'm doing. But one of the things that's really resonated me that I've been seeing a lot in social media is that consistency is an act of discipline, whereas where motivation is more of a feeling, and ultimately consistency and discipline ultimately matters more because your motivation wavers. And if you want, for instance, to meet a goal of going to the gym 3 times a week, you're not going to be motivated 3 times a week. But if you have the consistency and discipline to go, then you might accomplish your goals. You might. Um, so I thought that was a really interesting perspective because I always thought of them as you always hear like motivation is the thing. And I think it is a thing, but it really is. It's more of a feeling.
The motivation, the feeling, plus the consistency, which is the act, equals progress
Exactly.
almost.
Yeah. Like motivation is ultimately like your goal, your why are you doing this? And that is important to have because obviously if you're consistently doing something that you're not really motivated by, you're just kind of rowing in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And that's futile. But yeah, I think that really resonated with me. So how about you?
Man, I gotta tell you, I've been coming to appreciate, and like you said, I don't know if it's time of year. I think it's a time in my life. So here I am, 44, and I have really been coming to appreciate the power of consistency. And you mentioned discipline, consistency and discipline in order for me to live my life with intention and on purpose. And so this like consistency is just becoming the fuel that allows me to have the energy to make the decisions, manage my priorities. What am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? This it's almost like consistency for me is like the thing. Like even today, woke up this morning. Do I want to exercise every day? To your point, did I have the motivation today? No, I really didn't. The act though was like, yes, but if you don't do it, you're not going to have the energy to show up in the way that you want. So what did I do? Just put on my dang shoes and went for the walk. I heard something recently in that really has resonated too on those days that maybe you're not feeling motivated is it's not about the intensity of the habit. It's about just doing the habit. So sometimes when you start working out or you start a mental fitness program or you're starting something new, you feel like I gotta win. I gotta do it 100%. I gotta do it at an A level. And what this notion is, it's not about that intensity. It's about the actual just showing up and doing it. Even when it's not perfect, good enough. Wait, I know we've talked a lot about in our previous episodes about like good enough. So consistency for me is that it's table stakes.
Mhm.
My mental fitness, like, do I have consistency around my mental fitness practice? Do I have consistency around my physical fitness? Where I'm lacking consistency right now is the fueling, how I'm eating. But anyway, so I just have the power of consistency is just becoming more and more important in my life.
Absolutely. Have you ever, run a 5K or had some sort of like running event? So,
I try not to run, Rebecca.
yeah, unless somebody's pacing. No, I'm totally with you. But,
But I
but
do have a lot of friends that run. So keep
yeah.
going.
So
I do
there's
love it. I support it.
Yes, there's an app, I think it's called Couch to 5K or something along those lines. And it really is designed to help you move your body a little bit at a time and work your way up from, sitting on your couch and not running 5Ks to being able to do it. And I think that's kind of a great metaphor for this type of idea where really just if your goal, we keep using physical fitness, but I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the thing that, really a lot of people use to demonstrate whether or not they're consistent with a habit. But um, if you want to end up, being able to run a 5K, it's not about going out and running 5Ks every day until you don't hate it. It's about just getting up and moving your body a little bit at a time and working your way into your goal in a realistic time frame.
Yes. Starting small, baby
Yeah.
steps. Well, let's get into the tips. So is there tips, Rebecca, around that you want to share with our
Yeah.
listeners to know about the power of consistency?
So one thing that I think it's important to keep in mind is that motivation feels really good as you start or even before you start, but consistency feels better after. So, and it
Mm.
fuels motivation. So, um, it leads to momentum, which is one of the greatest motivators for you to be consistent.
Man, what's continuing to resonate here for me is that you almost need to have both and
Yeah.
understand what's at play. So the motivation is that gets you up in the morning, or you're willing, like I don't want to do this, but I'm trying to I'm trying to unpack that a little bit, because
Yeah.
it almost feels like we need to have both. I love that. Like, motivation gets you to do it, but then consistency is the actual act of doing it, and then you feel accomplished or fulfilled, or
Right. It's like
like you're making progress.
yeah, it's like motivation might be the fuel that helps the car go, but ultimately you need an engine and you have to just go, right?
Yeah. Consistency is the act of going.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that I think helps with consistency is obviously measuring. So, habit tracker, whatever it may be, but just giving yourself a measurement, but not having it be something that you look at as, by the end of this month only, if I hit my goal, then great, I'm going to keep doing it. If not, then it's done and I didn't do the thing. It's, give yourself at least 6 months, I would say, for any goal, because you're going to fall off and then, you're going to think it's ruined, it's done, I can't do this anymore. So that would be
And
another tip.
what is it proven that it takes 3 weeks, 21 days to start a new habit?
That's what
So
I've heard.
for it to stick,
Yeah.
so it's really easy, like you mentioned, when you're first getting started, it's exciting. And then usually week 2, right? You're building that habit. But it's a sticking with it for at least 3 weeks for it to take hold.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this goes for anything. I know we've been talking about physical fitness, but let's broaden it for just a moment. Like, this is anything. If you're starting to play guitar or take new
Mhm.
lessons, you're painting, look at Rebecca's, for those of you who can see in the podcast, Rebecca is getting back to painting. Like, it goes to
Right.
anything that you're starting new. What is it that you're building? How do you build and utilize the act of consistency and small daily doses to continue to move forward?
Well, and there's one more thing on consistency too, to couple that. And I think about consistency in mood as well. Your mood and behavior helps other people understand what they can expect from you. And I've heard that phrase before, you train people how to treat you. And so
Mm.
if you show up inconsistently, then, the people in your relationships, they don't know what they're going to get every single time they're with you. So I think it's really important too to consider how you're showing up. Are you consistent in how you're treating people?
Yeah.
So if you start to kind of get feedback from relationships, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, that people just are tiptoeing around you, that might be something to look at internally is, am I consistently showing up in the same way or in a predictable way in my relationships?
I love that. So it's the what I'm hearing is being consistent with your actions, but then also being consistent with how you're being and
Mm.
your energy. And one of the tips that I was going to share as well to build upon what you're saying is, as you're approaching things new and starting small and building consistent habits, it's your mindset around it that matters as well. So it's how your energy is showing up within others, but it's also the self-talk. So one of the tips I wanted to share was, when you're starting something new, what's the narrative around it? Are you approaching the new habit with self-love and grace and curiosity? Or are you beating yourself into the habit of like, I must do this and I have to do this, and if I don't do this at 100%, I'm going to fail? Because I think the more you approach a new habit and your mindset with love and curiosity and grace for yourself, the more you'll be able to ease and have the motivation and do the small daily steps for that habit and that consistency to build over time. I got to tell you, I've done both. I've created habits where I've beat myself into it and it doesn't stick. It just doesn't stick. I've also done it the other way where I'm like, you know what? We're just going to be curious. I'm going to make a little bit of progress each day. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to do this at a B or a C, and I'm going to get further. And I tend to get further and build that momentum and see the habit build when I approach it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. And I think I've yet to see somebody really shame themselves into a long-term change.
Yeah. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It may short term, but it
Yeah.
usually doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
So Rebecca, what's kind of how we want to leave our listeners with, as if we summarize today?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just to be mindful of, to your point, those soundtracks in your head. And also, are you looking to motivation to sustain your consistency, or are you able to get momentum and be disciplined about that change that you're trying to make? I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And the one thing I would add to that is, I know you and I have referenced James Clear.
Mhm.
So listeners, if you haven't picked up James Clear's book, The Atomic Habit, or even signed up, Rebecca, I believe you are subscribed to his newsletter
Yes.
as I am. I love it. It's a weekly, James Clear, The Atomic Habit. He is like masterful about the power of consistency.
Absolutely.
So what's one habit, as we close out today, what's one habit that you're working on building consistency around right now?
So we've talked a lot about physical activity. So my habit right now that I'm working toward is going to my boot camps that I go to work out 3 times a week. That's it. I'm like, if I can do 3 times a week, then I feel like I've accomplished something. And I have had to rely on just showing up, because if I always just tried to rely on my motivation, I wouldn't show up. I really
Yeah.
wouldn't.
And sometimes the showing up is the win, right?
Exactly.
You may
Hmm.
not get the workout at 100% or get the fuel, but showing up and the movement is the win, and
Exactly.
building that. And it sounds like you've even adjusted. Maybe your goal ultimately is 5 days, but right now in the season that you're in, you've adjusted the realistic expectation to be 3 days.
Exactly. It's good enough for now.
It's good enough, and you're still making progress.
Yep.
One habit that I am working on is my eating habits, and building some consistency with more healthy choices there. So much that I just got a nutritionist, so I'm gonna start working with a nutritionist that, like, I just need to tell me what to eat and when to eat it, and I will do it. And
Hey,
really creating that consistent healthy choices.
absolutely.
um and am I winning? No. I mean, am I winning 100%? Am I doing it 100%? No. But am I getting closer and making progress? Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm making more healthy choices than I was a couple weeks ago. So,
that is important.
it's just about setting realistic goals and inching your way a little bit at a time.
I love it.
Well, I wish you and everyone, for any new things that you're trying or any habits that you're trying to instill in your life, be kind to yourself, start small, have a plan to track it, and we wish you well with the power of consistency.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What in the Well. Be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, share it in the comments. Stay well until we meet again.